Hi everyone, my name is Anton Morkin. I'm from Germany. In 2020, my son got diagnosed with severe pulmonary hypertension. We were just rushed into many new things for us. People were saying, your child will die probably in the next week or month, and they do not know how long he will survive. And they told us, this is pulmonary hypertension. And that was the first time when I heard about it. I have a degree in physics, and I work at Apple as an IT professional. My education in biology and medicine is zero. And I didn't know anything about these type of diseases, and I didn't know really that there are so many diseases which do not have any cure. Or my biggest worry was about cancer. And we were just rushed into this within few days. And we were told that my son, Daniel, he will not recover most likely from this severe pulmonary hypertension, and he's not reactive to what they call NO test. They started to talk with us about lung transplantation. And all of that happened just in a few days. My story here may be very similar to stories of many, many families. Still, Daniel surprised everyone. Apparently, he became actually very responsive on the therapy, and within just a few weeks, he started to recover very well, which surprised also doctors because they didn't expect that. That gave us also kind of some time to reflect, and I was doing the following things. Like every day I was caring for my son. He was 16 months at that point. So I was caring for him on the day, and I was, because my wife was caring for him on the night, because he was in the ICU. And during nights, I was studying pulmonary hypertension to understand what it is and what I can do. So I started to reach out to my other people and exploring actually what is possible, how to treat it better. And that was my first thing. And still, I was not satisfied with the fact that I do not understand why that happened. Because the first diagnosis was idiopathic pulmonary hypertension, and there is no any explanation actually why that happened. For me, that was always disappointing, that because it means that if you do not know why that happened, you don't know how to treat it. And then at that place where Daniel was diagnosed, they ordered a genetic test, which was really nice thing from them, because I know that also it doesn't happen actually in every place. Apparently, and there are places which still do not refer to genetic tests, which is, in my opinion, really weird, because certainly genetics play in children, that's like more than 50% by genetics from this pulmonary arterial hypertension. They made a genetic test, and it took a while actually for them to bring us a result. It took months, but they did that, and they did find a mutation in a gene which is named TBX4. And that was the first time when I heard about TBX4. That forced me actually to go into that area. That, first of all, that gave me at least, some sense. Okay, so something got broken in his DNA, and that is the reason. And then at least I know where to look to. And I started to research in genetics. I had to educate myself in genetics, actually. So I educated myself on pulmonary hypertension, in pulmonology, then in genetics. And after that education in genetics, I started to understand how the things are connected together. TBX4 syndrome, it affects lower limbs and it affects lungs during embryo development the most. And depending on the mutation and that kind of like combination of unknown currently factors, it can create a different impact on the body. And on the skeletal side, it primarily affects knees. That is so-called small patella syndrome. It is also like a rare disease. But I was living with this small patella syndrome for 45 years without knowing it. When I had some troubles with the knees, I came to orthopedists, and one of them said, your knees are so strange, I never seen them. Never seen such. Okay, so how that helps? So finally, with this TBX4 syndrome, I was able to explain this. Like, small patella syndrome literally means that your patella is small, and sometimes it's positioned higher than it should be. And if you don't train your knees in the right way, then you just have increased pain. And this is what happened with me. So it happened from 25 till 35, and then 35, I was barely able to walk on the stairs. And that is just because of this gene mutation. Or hip replacement. That's another one. In adults, for example, hip problems can also be severe. And if in the family there are such histories, and there is one with pulmonary hypertension, then I would rather go and do a test, because it's very likely that it is TBX4. In some humans, it can create more damage. In some humans, it creates less damage. And a good example of that is me. I carry the same gene, and my son actually inherited this gene from me, this broken gene from me. But I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm still alive. And how they named that, asymptomatic carrier. I hope that I will continue to be a symptomatic carrier. So, who knows? Yes, but I didn't get pulmonary hypertension. But at that point, important for me was to understand that, okay, so this is not idiopathic, this is good. I do know what is my enemy and what I can fight with. I started to kind of separate this story from the story of general pulmonary hypertension. Because when you look on the pediatric pulmonary hypertension, diversity is so high, and you do not understand what to expect, because there are children dying, and as long as there are no differentiating factors, you do not understand what to expect. So in the first year, when we were diagnosed, and we got into those Facebook groups, a lot of children are diagnosed with a very severe situation, right? So, but then it can go to a more stabilized. And that is actually what happened with my son. So he's now 6 years old. He's stable for the last 5 years. He's on triple therapy. He's living full life. He's doing everything, almost everything. So he does taekwondo. He does swimming. He's capable of doing these things. Having him in that condition allows me also to do more things, rather than I do understand those parents also who, for example, have babies in ICU, right? As long as you like stay there, you do not have that much chance to do some other things. And I started to connect families. I was able to identify them actually, because since this is skeletal disease plus lung disease, skeletal signs, you can see them. And interestingly, so like some of the families, they actually found that they maybe have this TBX4 mutation by skeletal signs. That is why from the age of 25 years old, I was not able to run and jump. The gene affected my knees. They connected those things, and then we made an official test, and that confirmed also that I have that mutation. Since I was able to connect several families, I thought, okay, so maybe we can somehow do this together, kind of, I don't know, help each other, help also maybe to bring this disease to be more heard, right? So, and to make some noise around this disease, so that it's, fortunately, this knowledge was already there. The correlation between TBX4 and pulmonary hypertension was made only 2013. So before that, nobody knew about that. And correlation between TBX4 and developmental lung disease was even later, like in 2019. And my son was diagnosed in 2020. And I started to read those papers about this TBX4 and how that works and how that creates those pulmonary hypertension, and found that in every of those publications, they say, more research is needed, data is incomplete. And they just describe like few cases in France, few cases in the US. By my career, I'm program manager for like 20 years. Essentially what I'm doing for 20 years, connecting people from remote places, connecting them to deliver something. And I think maybe I can do something here. I approached it just a single person. I was so lucky so that I approached the right person. So I approached Dr. Eric Austin from Vanderbilt University. He was so great on the conversation. I just approached him, just make a Zoom call, had a conversation, and I kind of said, maybe I can help somehow, you can help. And then and Eric didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do, but we had a great call. So he said that, yes, I will support you as long as you know what to do. And then I approached Eric and said, okay, I know what to do. So let's start a foundation. Let's start this international collaboration. And that is how we actually created TBX for Life. It took us about maybe 1 year to ramp it up, to understand kind of how to engage professionals, how to position this foundation, because to the time when I was starting this, there were already enough different foundations for, especially for pulmonary hypertension, like phaware, for example, right? phaware and PHA US, PHA Europe, and kind of like I was thinking, okay, so I do not want to create another one pulmonary hypertension organization. Does not make any sense. What I wanted to bring the focus on my case. So, and that focus on TBX4, I wanted to be sure that my specific cause is on top. And I'm personally a person who can reach out to anybody to make this happen. We cover holistically genetic condition and focuses on that. On the community side, also, I started to connect more and more people. And currently, we're still relatively small. But again, we are talking about ultra-rare disease. I think that it's good that we already have more than 100 members in this community, from New Zealand to Europe, Australia, US, almost every state in the US, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, like about 15 countries currently, whom we connected. And we connect them together, we educate them as much as possible, give them information about this disease, connect them to specialists where that is possible. But we also kind of give them a platform also to exchange that information between themselves, because, they can join, for example, and they should join those communities for pulmonary hypertension, but those communities will not tell them about experience what we have for the specific disease, right? And we give that one portion which is more for them. Couple of years ago, we achieved a state when we were comfortable to set a goal for the organization to cure TBX4. We all want to do many beautiful things, but essentially I think that for our children, we need cure. And for me, that was extremely important. And then in the beginning, we were very cautious of not setting some artificial goals because, I'm not a scientist. I can say anything. I can say any nonsense. I can say, okay, let's cure it tomorrow. But clinicians and scientists, they cannot do that because they do understand how much is behind that. I understand that well. So it's not an easy journey. It's a very, very tough journey, and it can be multi-year or can be even multi-decades. But important is, as long as there is such a goal and people are committed to that, then that drives. And that was so essential for me. What would be that roadmap to cure? And essentially, this is kind of like a drug development life cycle. We need some understanding of the genes. We need understanding on how genes works, proteins works, how that cells and lung development happens. And we need to find compounds and try them, for example, first in the very basic models, like, for example, you know what is possible currently? So you can take blood from a patient, and from that blood, you can create so-called stem cells. And those stem cells are reprogrammed. There are ways to reprogram them into embryonic state. And you can just take blood, reprogram that to that kind of embryonic state, and then from that state, program to your lungs. You can create just a cell which is kind of for lungs. And they are capable even now to create so-called organoids, which contain different cells. Because, for example, in the lungs, there are about 10 different types of cells, and they co-culture them together and create organoid, like a small part of the lung. There are efforts, by the way, now in science to grow the whole lung, because there is a big problem, for example, for lung transplantation, that you transplant the lungs, but those have a lot of troubles because bodies think that there's something wrong, right? So, and this acute rejection, chronic rejection, all of this stuff happens. So if someone would be able to grow lungs from the stem cells of the patient, then there will be no of those problems. And this science is moving, so that's why I'm so fascinated now with all this happening, and why actually this cure TBX4 for me is kind of like yes, maybe this is very ambitious, but still it's not necessarily unrealistic, because science currently goes amazingly, just amazingly. It is just exponentially. Like 5 years ago, it was taking like 10 years. Now it can be done with 2 years. One of the things, for example, which we're now doing this initiative, we collect blood from patients, and we would like to enroll more and more patients so that we can create those stem cells and make those models so that we can test different medical compounds and see if they can actually recover this impact. And if that will be found in stem cells, we can do that on animal models, like in mice, for example. And when we can prove that in mice, then we can go and try that on humans. It's a very simplified picture, honestly speaking. But I know the path. And then we have in our initiative all the people who do understand this in all the details. We have researchers for cells, people who researchers for animal models, people who are geneticists, people who research how genes are connected. We have people who use artificial intelligence to study correlations between genes. We have clinicians. I visited almost every pediatric pulmonary hypertension center. I was in Colorado, in Boston. I met with almost each of them who lead these pulmonary hypertension programs in different sites, in Texas, in Vanderbilt, at UCSF, and Stanford, and also in Europe and the Netherlands. So we connected all of these clinicians also together. I think that we have enough people, just need a little bit of kind of like push and continue that. I keep this photo of my son just in front of me on the phone. Photo when it's emotional. It's 5 years ago, and it's still emotional. I think that this initiative, it's also my response. I'm not sure if I will really make something for him. I don't know. But just I know that if I'll not do that, there is no excuse. I kind of like, I went through that journey, right? So I had 5 years. I keep it separate. I kept separate this story and this story for TBX for Life. My son's story and story for TBX for Life. This is intentionally because I cannot put 100% of my time and just say, sorry, son, I cannot do anything with you because I will be doing this TBX for Life. because I think that it's unfair to him. So my biggest challenge is actually to keep that balance, have enough time to be spent with him and with the rest of my family. I have another one daughter who is fortunately not affected. She is not a carrier. And I have a primary job, so I mean, all this TBX for Life is just truly volunteering. So I do not get any penny for TBX for Life, as well as others who join in me to volunteer their time. We are not paid, so we have our other jobs. I have my job, which brings me that income, which allows me to live that life, which I can, and I need to balance it. My job, family, and TBX for Life in the right balance. And this is it's not that easy, but that is possible. I do what is possible to increase his chances. That's kind of like that thing, right? Of course, I will be very happy to save as many children as possible, but I cannot just put the whole my life and keep my son living without me, right? What I want to say and share actually maybe in this podcast as well, those who start something, doing something, create initiatives or support initiatives or devote their time to make it, more loud, etc., that worth it. That must be happening. This era of rare diseases and advocacy groups for rare diseases, it started to transform maybe about 15 years ago, and it is more and more respected. That's also part of my motivation because, I don't know, so it would be just maybe less positive for me if I was just spending every day seeing how he's fortunately stable, like I said, but I don't know how long he will be stable. I don't know. And I just sit and do nothing. I just cannot do that. So I just can't, what it means. I'm not religious, so I cannot pray. So I can't. It's unlikely to help. So I cannot outsource this to anybody. So, okay, so I will do that myself. I need to do that myself. And if it will help, it will help. If it will not, I at least did it right. My name is Anton Morkin, and I'm aware that my son is rare.